Kimberly Michelle Hricko was a murderer who had one victim and then was to collect insurance money on Valentine's Day 1998. Her victimology was her 35-year-old husband, Stephen Hricko. She was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years on March 20th, 1999. Welcome back to the TCL podcast. And my name is Breezy, and here we talk murder and other forms of crime. I do have a YouTube channel that you can go and check out as well. I also have a Patreon that you can join as well. And by joining my Patreon, you will receive early access to episodes scheduled to come out. I also have a merch shop that you can go shop at as well. For any updates on my channel and podcast, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Now, since I have all that out of the way, why don't we dive into why he really came, right? Okay. Have y'all figured out February 14th, 1929 yet? We we are midway through our mini-series Valentine's Day Murders. And today we are going to be talking about the case of a murder mystery in real life. That's right, we're going to be talking about the case of Kimberly Hricko. And I love a good murder mystery to play at, but when it happens in real life, I can't, no. I do enjoy talking about it, but I cannot see myself doing it. But a romantic murder mystery weekend turns deadly when a surgical technician murders her husband, wife, for life insurance money by poisoning him and then setting his body on fire. Hricko was a bright and bubbly surgical technician that led a comfortable middle-class existence with her husband Stephen. But the Hricko's sunny suburban image vanished in smoke in flames on the weekend of 1998. Why do I keep wanting to say 1928? I don't know why. But anyway, um, this was when Steve and Kim went on a romantic getaway at a golf resort in Maryland. And as part of the Valentine's Day special, the resort staged a murder mystery scene where guests watched and staged the wood unit and then attempted to solve the puzzle. Man, that would be so awesome. That's a good way to win my heart right there. As much as I hate Valentine's Day, that if you want to win my heart, take me to a murder mystery weekend. Just saying. Anyway, so Kim and her husband have gotten drunk. So, though Kim said her husband gotten drunk and died from smoke inhalation, the resulting autopsy showed no signs of either alcohol or carbon monoxide anywhere in his body. And at her trial, the prosecution argued that she had shocked Stephen, that she knocked him out with something I'm not even going to pronounce, but it was basically a nearly untraceable muscle paralyzer that was used in surgery. And why did she do this, you ask? Well, she wanted to collect 400,000 life insurance policy. Well, I wouldn't do have that much, but I wouldn't go to such lengths like this. So the news reports were progressively more horrific. The local newspapers, the Eastern Star Democrat, and the first was to report the tragedy on Monday, February 16, 1998. So, the Maryland State Police and the state's fire marshal were investigating this fire at the Harbor Town Golf Resort in conference that may have begun on or about bed in one of the guest suites that's on a Sunday morning. So, and according to an article, Hricko and his wife Kim attended the audience participation of the murder mystery play at the resort that Saturday night before. And during the play, the bridge room fell after the bride's mom poisoned him. The fire was reported as one in the cottages several hours later, about 1:25. So that same day, on February 19th, both newspapers picked up the story, with an angle of a murder mystery play irresistible. Even though both the Sun and the Post provided more detail to what happened, it still seemed mysterious. I mean, she really thought she had the perfect crime, honestly. But really need to position my laptop better, but I gotta clear my desk too, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, about 3 hours after the play ended, according to the hotel management, Kimberly ran to the front desk asking to call 911 because of fire in a couple's room, and Kimberly Hricko was questioned by investigators and on the scene and again, and she was unavailable for comment to any papers. So the Post would go on to interview Bobby Bennett, an actress in the murder mystery play. And she would go on to say, "It was just very strange the way it happened. It was just bizarre." Other details were included in the Post as well. The lore leaders will describe the events following the play um, as relatively calm. That's the thing. So here's what happened. While looking into the investigation, Steve and Kimberly Hricko had an 8-year-old daughter. They were in a marriage counseling to address some problems in their relationship. Um, Kim had asked Steve for a divorce, but reluctantly agreed to counseling first. Mike Miller, Steve's best friend since kindergarten, and the golf superintendent at Harbortown suggested the Valentine's Day weekend at the resort. Steve saw the weekend getaway as a major step in repairing their marriage, which he was desperate to do. Later could come out that Kim didn't want to go on a getaway with Steve. Um, Kim was a hospital surgical technician at Holy Cross Hospital in Silver Spring, and her duties included to set up an operating room, handling surgical instruments, and assisting during operations, and most importantly, cleaning up at the operations. Kim also, starting immediately after the fire, as soon as Kim started talking to investigators whether in a former interview or not, suspicions began to arouse. Of course, that's the first person you look to when someone dies. Everyone knows that. Think is the one they're married to, or they're in a divorce from, or they're in a messy relationship with. Things didn't add up though, because once investigators started interviewing friends and family, things got worse for Kim, and for one simple reason. She couldn't keep her mouth shut. She almost had the perfect crime, right? So there was a book by an investigative reporter, and the book was called Act of Murder. And this is by Linda Warren. It has a detailed account on the case. In a phone interview, Warren would tell another problem for Kim. Kim thought that she was smarter than everybody else, including police investigators. And we both know when you get cocky, you're bound to slip up, right? Exactly. Um, so one of two police officers on the scene, Officer Stephen Craig from the St. Michael's Police Department, was evacuating others guests and just members after Parker had pulled Steve's body from the room. It was then he saw Kim for the first time. And as Craig and Parker were talking, Kim approached Craig, and she was holding her cell phone in her hand. She kept saying she wanted to see the body, although she hadn't yet been told that Steve was dead. Suspicious, right? I would think so. Anyway, several hours later, state trooper and Father Paul Jennings, state police chaplain, and had informed her of her husband's death. And her response was not emotional like you would think. Oh, my ex-husband died. Maybe I should be emotional, right? But no. Kim told Harkness that after leaving the murder mystery production, she and Steve brought up some beer from the bar and returned to the room. Once in the room, Steve had begun pressuring her for sex, she said. When she refused, Steve became pushy and he was groping her. And she said she continued to resist Steve in advance and they started arguing. She told him that I don't want to get into it, so I got my keys in my purse, I got in the car and left. She said as she drove to Easton, looking for the home of some friends, but she said she wasn't familiar with the area and never found the home. She couldn't even find a Route 50. Yeah. She said that she remembered that she and Steve had been using sliding door glass and thought it might still be unlocked. So she ran around the back of the complex. Kim said that she pushed the door open and was confronted by thick smoke. She said that she screamed, pushed back the curtain, and she felt around for the light switch, but she couldn't find it. She then told the troopers that she ran to the other rooms and knocked on the door, screaming for help, but no one answered. Next, she drove to the main building and went into the lobby, screaming that her body was on fire. And she told several people who were in the lobby that quickly ran to her room. She told Harkness that she tried to get back in the room, but she was stopped by someone in a uniform. So, fire investigator Mike Mulligan would arrive at the scene with his dog, who was trained to detect accelerants per his usual procedure. But before leading the dog to the fire scene, Mulligan put a drop of gasoline on a random spot in the parking lot with the dog when the dog passed it. He gave me a hit where I would put the drop of accelerant. In the Hricko's room, the dog detected accelerant between the beds where Steve died. However, because the lab test did not detect any, Mulligan said it was probably evaporated, and he was not able to testify at trial to what his dog detected. Investigators soon found out that the fire was contained to the bed, headboard, and the wall above, and a pillow exhibited a silhouette of Steve's head formed by the fatal falling suit. Another pillow, unburned, was found on the opposite side of the bed where Steve was laying. Interesting. So, the Playboy magazine opened his centerfold worded that was on the pillow, and under the pillow was a pack of backwoods cigars, missing one cigar. Two nearly full beer bottles were the nightstand. And around 5 a.m., two Maryland state troopers who had taken over the investigation interviewed Kim, who had been sleeping in another room. In this interview, she expanded details. She explained that she and Steve had been having marital problems for years, for about 3 months now, and decided to attend the Valentine's Day weekend, hoping to revive their marriage. According to Kim, Steve got sloppy drunk during the evening and drinking all but one glass of complimentary bottle of champagne and beer. And after a diner show, the couple purchased more beer to drink. Back at their room, Kim told officers that Steve was taking several types of prescription medicine for his depression, including Xanax, and she said that he was taking over-the-counter liquid and cold medicine Theraplu. According to Kim, Steve took a Xanax, then Theraplu around 7 o'clock. And just before they went to dinner, Kim told um, officers that he regularly chewed tobacco and smoked cigars while he drank. However, she didn't think Steve brought any cigarettes or cigars with him to Harbortown. So Kim said when she and Steve finally got back to the room, and they watched the building Tommy. They watched the movie Tommy Boy, and then watched and was watching by 11 o'clock the news where Steve began pawing her. Kim said that she was surprised when she and Steve had agreed there would be no sex during this weekend, and she also said that she was surprised about her husband's advances because he wanted sex usually turned to pornography, not her. She said that she left the room because of a fight over Steve's drunken behavior, adding that it wasn't a physical fight. Kim explained that Steve had never been physically abusive to her, and the officers were surprised that she exhibited little reaction when the officers gave her the very details of the information. Like, show some emotions for crying out loud. Like, seriously. But her story began to fall apart as soon as investigators started talking to friends and witnesses, and Steve's best friend, Mike Miller, told the police that Steve didn't smoke and that there was no way he would have been drinking heavily. Investigators questioned Henry Dove, who was Maryland's assistant state's attorney, and who happened to be sitting at the Hricko's table during dinner. And Dove told the police, I couldn't even swear he had one beer. But maybe he did, but he certainly wasn't drinking heavy. Interesting, right? So, by Monday morning, 2 days after the fire, two friends had called the police and Kim and said that Kim might have killed her husband by injecting him with a drug that would paralyze his muscles and preventing him from moving and leaving him helpless. Jenny Gowen and Norma Walls worked at Holy Cross with Kim and said they were close friends. Even though Norma had since moved to Washington State, Norma and Kim were bridesmaids in Jenny's wedding in November 1997. And during the wedding festivities, Kim met Jenny's cousin Brad, who was in the military. Unknown to her friends, yes, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can figure out what I'm about to say. Kim started having an affair with him. And a few weeks after the wedding, Kim disclosed the affair to her friends, upsetting Jenny, telling Kim was furious with Jenny for not supporting her. And Kim felt Jenny was only worried about the affair, how it would affect her marriage. She didn't seem to care about her anything after that. I wonder why. I don't feel bad for this girl at all. And it takes a lot for me, like, not to feel bad for something. Not to feel bad like that, but it's true. I'm a very nice person until you make me mad, but honestly, I pick my battles. But anyway, back to the episode. A few weeks after the wedding. So, later in the conversation about insurance, Kim and Norma had taken out the $250,000 smoker's term insurance policy on Steve, even though he didn't smoke. Interesting. So Rachel McCoy was another very close friend to Kim, dating back to their days in high school. After speaking to Rachel on the phone the day Kim returned to her home in Laurel after Steve's death, she relayed the message to another friend, Maureen Miller, Mike's wife, who was also a friend of Kim since college, and she was very ticked off, as you can imagine. So, Kim said to Maureen she thinks I killed Steve, and Maureen will respond, what will give her that crazy idea? And how will Kim respond? Well, as all narcissists do. Because we were out in a bar one night, and I was drunk, and I was mad at Steve about a fight we had, and I said I wanted to kill him. Yeah. So the conversation with McCoy and Kim mentioned just took place before the Harbor Town weekend. So, Kim also confided in her neighbor in the Laurel neighborhood, Terry Armstrong, and that had been thinking about several different ways to kill Steve, basically for insurance money to support her and her daughter. But the most damaging information about Kim from a coworker at Holy Cross was from Ken Burgess, who told investigators about a conversation that he had with Kim about a year earlier at the hospital. It's like I had my back to her, and she made a statement about wanting to have her husband killed, and would I do it, or would I know somebody that would kill her husband? Thinking she was joking, he turned around, looked at her, and said, "I might need it off the and made an off the cut comment like, "Why would you want to kill your husband? You work in the operating room. Why don't you just give some Carrera to help him sleep?" He was joking, but she took it seriously. So at some so at a as the investigation started to continue, the investigative suspicions proved to be correct. Medical examiner, sorry, I had to get my stress ball. Um, I have anxiety, so a lot of times, so I have like a stress ball, and it really helps me. So because I have to be doing something with my hands and moving around. But anyway, as the forensic investigation continued, the investigative suspicion proved to be correct. The medical examiners reported at the police that the autopsy indicated there was no carbon dioxide in his blood, nor was there any evidence to suit of the trachea and the injuries that was meant for Steve, which was either breathing or dead before the fire in his room started. When Kim's conversation with Burgess became known, the Emmy suspected that Kim injected him with this, and so and according to resonance, when injected to the body, it can take 4 to 6 hours to paralyze a person's skeletal muscles, and for a person to stop breathing, then die. And amazingly, this is considered a non-controlled substance, but it should be, right? Yeah. So, unfortunately, in 1998, there was no forensic test to detect this because the speed at which the body metabolizes the drug. Investigators found other problems with Kim's story. None of the guests in the adjoining rooms heard any banging on the door yelling fire around 1:30, which the resort management did when the resort management did it. So the pack of cigars on the bed was another clue. The police checked out 25 liquor convenience stores in Laurel, and they hit the jackpot when they visited Astor Home and Liquors in the Laurel Shopping Center. Not only did the state police lab confirm the price sticker on the pack of, but in the burn bed was the same as those on the shelf at Astor Home. But the cashiers picked out Kim's photo and the woman who brought the cigarettes. So fire investigators attempted to replicate starting the fire using some of the cigarettes from the bedding in Harbortown. Despite many attempts, they were not able to start the fire. So, I then lost my place. I'm sorry, y'all. Yes, okay, I found my place. I'm sorry, y'all, about that. But on February 27th, February 23rd, Maryland State Police investigated Sergeant Karen Alt and Corporal Keith Elsie confronting him with these findings. Sergeant Alt asked her if she had an affair, and she said she wasn't, and then asked if she knew a Marine by the name of Brad Winkler. She appeared shocked, didn't say a word, and they told her they knew about the affair. Kim bowed her head, then looked up and acknowledged the affair. She asked him to tell him how much alcohol Steve drank the night before. If he Kim said he heavily drank, and Elsie did confront her with his Ulster medical toxicology report, which Steve indicated his blood alcohol level was at 0.00. She looked stunned, right? Because this didn't make any sense to her. Well, Elsie did confront Kim with the medical examiner's report indicating there was no carbon monoxide or soot found in his body. Again, she looked stunned. I mean, you're supposed to be a medical professional, right? But anyway, she would go on to say, I don't understand, and like, how could that be? And started the most fakest tears ever. Um, so, Elsie would then tell her, please tell me what happened, but with the truth that night. Kim would bend over, put her head to her hands, still crying, still sobbing. Got up, sat in another chair, and put her face in her hands. And then she asked, if I tell you, can I go home tonight to see my daughter? Kim abruptly changed her mind and asked for a lawyer, and police allowed Kim to stay in Easton with Mike Miller and his wife. That evening, police served a warrant to the Miller's house to search Kim's car, where, while the search was underway, Kim was upstairs, obstinately taking a bath. And when Maureen Miller went to check on her, she's talking and slurring her words, and she knew something was up. She found an empty bottle of pills that has Xanax written on them. But if you recall, remember he had taken Xanax and Dermablue beforehand, right? Wow. And the police were executing the search warrants. Kim was taken away in an ambulance, but all was not seen. Apparently, Kim staged it to look like she was going to get a bath, slit her wrist, and kill herself, because, as it turned out, that medication that she was taking was not Xanax, according to the toxicology report. Kim put something in the Xanax bottle that will look like it was. The nurse at the hospital told Maureen that Kim will be fine. In fact, she said that the nurse would have been worried about taking her off the aspirin. Interesting, right? In the search of their home in Laurelton neighborhood, the same time the police were searching Kim's car, they found Steve's journal and his writing, a man who was desperate to do whatever it took for his wife, a man worried about his wife's feelings. If he would even go on to write, I didn't feel she understands how deeply I love her. I mean, real love. I am afraid to get the chance that I won't be able to make my marriage right. 2 days later, Kim was arrested, she was denied bail, and she was placed on suicide watch. Then her trial will begin. Well, her trial begins 11 months after the fire, and prosecutors lost some pretrial motions before Talbot County judge. 2 syringes, one on the golf course and one in the Hricko home, was ruled inadmissible. And Kim's lawyer successfully argued that needle was not relevant because the autopsy on Stephen Hricko did not reveal any needle marks. As ruled out and you mentioned, Kim's so-called attempted suicide at the Miller's home in the fire investigation of Mike Mulligan. The testimony was limited and by the judge, and he did not testify. This man called a love him. So the defense attorney Harry Trainer countered the opening statements as loose talk and inappropriate conduct were done before the incident, and the part of Kimberly Hricko was suspicious, but nothing more. Polar weather, don't you guys love it? Just messes up your nose and your sinuses. Perfectly, I know. Anyway, Kim did not take the stand, which was probably for her own good, right there. But after a 5-day trial, the jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found her guilty of first-degree murder and arson. The defendant didn't nearly committed a perfect crime, but she was not smart enough as she claimed. So she would place an appeal in September 2000 with a three-court judge panel, and they upheld her conviction. So there has been actually some media that came out about this, but it's not much media from what I can find. But her prison, so what about her life in prison? Well, from prison, she had written essays about prison life, whining about privileges. In one published in Washington, August 2016, she complained about the rules changing that was no longer allowed for her to hold her granddaughter during a visit from her daughter. And in July 2016, her article on Vice complained about the rules concerning mail, what was allowed and what was not, and her snarky comments followed a reasonable explanation for the rules, which were meant to be sarcastic but considered circumstances have been hard to accept. You were just spoiled and used to get what you wanted, lady. Sorry, I have no pity for this woman. I really don't. That's the thing. None of her essays acknowledges that Steve can't hold his granddaughter or read Game of Thrones because Kim killed him and burned beyond recognition so she could run off with her new boyfriend. That affair probably wouldn't have lasted no more than a year. Right? Exactly. So, in an interview, reflecting on the motives to get away from Steve and live happily ever after, pipe dream, um, noted that after she was arrested, Brad wanted nothing to do with her. Exactly. He was just using her more than likely. But yeah. But that is it for today's episode. I will see y'all next time. Hope y'all have a fabulous Valentine's Day. And don't kill anybody in the process.